What if everything you've been told about poisonous plants is only half the story? What if the plants you were trained to avoid are actually the reason humans survived when food disappeared? Today, we're stepping into a forest most people walk through blind, not because it's empty, but because it's misunderstood. Out here, survival isn't about finding obvious food. It's about decoding signals, bitterness, color, fungal webs under your feet. And the most dangerous-looking plants. Sometimes they hide the richest energy sources in the wild. Modern survival guides love to say, avoid anything toxic. Sounds safe, right? But history tells a different story. Entire cultures survived harsh winters by processing plants labeled lethal. Mountain communities transformed bitter tubers into nutrient-dense starch. Early explorers mapped fungal networks not just for curiosity, but because those hidden relationships meant the difference between starvation and endurance. And here's the counterintuitive part. Toxicity doesn't always mean useless. In nature, poison is often a signal, a warning that something powerful is inside. Look closer at the forest floor. Beneath the moss and fallen leaves are roots that store massive energy reserves. Many are too bitter to eat raw. Some are outright dangerous without deep knowledge. Yet throughout history, people learned to read the land instead of fearing it. They observed animal behavior, soil patterns, and the way fungi braided themselves around roots like living circuitry. Why would a plant evolve bitterness? Often to protect nutrients. Why do fungi wrap around certain species? Because symbiosis amplifies survival, for the plant, for the soil, and sometimes for us. So today, we're asking a question that flips conventional survival thinking on its head. In a resource-scarce world, are the most overlooked plants actually the most valuable? Because while supermarkets train us to chase sweetness and softness, the wild rewards patience. The greens people ignore, sharp, bitter, resilient, may carry compounds that helped ancient communities stay strong when calories were scarce. And that doesn't mean recklessness. The forest punishes ignorance. What it rewards is observation, slow, careful reading of patterns. Early field journals describe explorers noticing how certain fungi only appeared near specific roots, not random, not decorative, a living map pointing to underground energy stores. Those who understood the signs didn't just gather food, they built systems of resilience. But somewhere along the way, modern culture simplified the narrative. Poison equals danger, bitter equals bad. Complexity got replaced with warning labels. And now, most people walk past entire ecosystems of potential without ever realizing it. Imagine a future where, supply chains break down, shelves empty. The landscape around you suddenly matters more than any app or instruction manual. Would you recognize which plants signal abundance? Would you know how to read fungal patterns like a map? Or would you walk past the very resources that could sustain you because someone once called them poison? This isn't about turning the forest into a grocery store. It's about, understanding relationships, plants, soil, fungi, and human ingenuity. Because survival has never been about finding the safest looking option. It's about learning why certain species evolved the way they did, and how humans historically adapted alongside them. In the next few minutes, we're going deeper, tracing how lethal-looking tubers became staples in harsh environments, why bitterness can signal resilience instead of danger, and how fungal symbiosis quietly shapes entire ecosystems beneath your feet. You'll see why explorers documented specific plant pairings again and again, and why modern survival conversations rarely mention them. And here's the twist. The lesson isn't just botanical, it's psychological, because the biggest survival advantage might be the willingness to question assumptions, to look at something labeled dangerous and ask, what am I missing? The forest doesn't advertise its secrets. It whispers them through patterns, through roots that twist toward hidden moisture, through mushrooms that appear like signposts after rain, through greens so bitter most people won't even touch them. But for those who learn to read those signals, the landscape transforms. What looked hostile becomes strategic. What felt empty becomes abundant. So stay with me, because by the end of this journey, you might never look at a poisonous plant the same way again, not as an enemy, but as a clue. And once you start seeing the forest this way, you realize survival was never just about avoiding danger. It was about understanding it.